All right, Nick, it's time to dive into another Tommy Wiseau project. You are such a good friend of mine that I'm not even going to put one of the letters in parentheses. Let's do it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Another episode of Two Peas on a Podcast where we review the latest and sometimes greatest movies every week, and sometimes whatever the hell this is. Gerald is here with you, and over on the other side is an alien from another planet with long, flowing black hair who's always asking about my sex life. Nick, how are you?
Oh, hi, Gerald.
Good to see you, man. Wow. So another retro roulette review. We spun the wheel last week. We got a patron selected review to do this week, Glasses Guy. And it is for the Greg Sestero, Tommy Wiseau helmed Best Friends, which comes in 2 volumes. And we're going to talk about the full project tonight.
Dos Voluemos.
Right, you saw
that's
both,
how
right?
you pronounce that. That's exactly how that works.
Yeah, so the whole thing is going to be a discussion. My brain hurts. I watched volume 2 today.
So do you want to let's before we even dive into any of it, how do you want to break it up? Do you want to do volume 1 and then volume 2, or do you want to just do the discussion of both all at the same time?
I think we should just do it all at the same time.
Okay.
Just kind of treat it as one movie and just kind of go through it.
Okay. I just was curious to what you were thinking there.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think. I mean, I'll do whatever, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. We're going to do a new segment this week, too, guys. We're going to call it Spill the Peas, where we look at some interesting news stories that have come up in entertainment in the last week since we recorded. We just came up with this idea a few days ago, but there's a couple articles I wanted to run by you, Nick, and see what you think here.
Oh, no, I've spilled the peas. That's the sound drop. That's the sound drop for now until I get one made.
You got to get a sound drop. Bong Joon-ho, of course, Parasite, the Oscar-winning director, has a highly anticipated movie, a sci-fi film called Mickey 17, that was supposed to come out and be in the Oscars race this past year, got pushed back to 2024, but today they announced that it's been released in January of 2025. That's the bad news. The good news is it's going to have an IMAX release, but January of 2025. It was in my top 10 most anticipated of this year. I'm pissed. Did you see this? How do you feel about this? You're a fan of Parasite, Bong Joon-ho. I know you hated, what was the one on the train that you hated?
Snowpiercer is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. It is like unfathomably stupid. No, push it to 2030, push it to 2040. I don't care. I do not care about Bong Joon-ho like a lot of people do. Parasite was fine. Man. Parasite was not some like lauded masterpiece of whatever.
It was.
I'm sorry.
Parasite's one of the greatest films of the last.
I'm sorry,
all
the film Twitter listeners and viewers just tuned out. But
you should be apologizing to me as one of my favorite films of the last.
No, it's fine. Like I think I gave it like a 7. Like it's not a bad movie by any means, but it's not like this next level masterpiece that people lauded it as. I'm sorry, it's not.
I disagree, and I'm
so
also
push it. I don't
17.
really. I honest to God, I don't care.
I got one that you probably do care about though. We covered the creator on the show this year, and I know you're a fan of Gareth Edwards. He has been lauded as the lead, like the director for the new Jurassic World film for Universal. So we're gonna get a Gareth Edwards Jurassic World film. What do you think, man? I'm kind of into this. I like this news.
No.
You don't?
I don't care who's directing it. I don't want another Jurassic movie. The last one had locusts in it, Gerald. Do you remember the locusts?
I do, but I guess I'm thinking about what he did with the Godzilla 2014. And...
I mean, look, Gareth Edwards is a fantastic visual director. His sense of scale in film, like things like Rogue One, even in like The Creator and his Godzilla film, like all those different movies. Yes, like he's a fantastic visual director, and I think he's definitely got the chops to film this thing visually. But it's not going to be about what this film looks like. We all know it's going to look good because they're going to dump an absolute truckload of money into the budget to make it look good. But what on earth story is there left to tell in this franchise? Like the last one was Locusts, Gerald. Locusts. So... They ran out of interesting dinosaur stories to tell so much that
Yeah.
they just were like, hey, just give them locusts instead. Like we could just have dinosaurs sort of be in it sometimes, but make it all about locusts.
So you want this franchise dead? Is that
I
what I'm
want
hearing
it
from
dead
you?
and gone. Like
All
I
right. Okay.
literally, I after what was it called, Dominion or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then the one before that was terrible too. Like the one before it was terrible, and Colin Trevorrow's Jurassic World was barely passable. And I think the what was the second one called? The second Jurassic World movie, whatever it was called, but the only good thing about that was J.A. Bayona's direction. So I have a feeling that that's going to be more of the same. I'll remain optimistic. Like the original Jurassic Park is one of my favorite movies, like top 20 of all
Yeah.
time. Like iconic score. Like every time I see that shot
Well, that's
of
the problem. That's the
Alan
problem. They're
and
chasing that too, though.
well,
They're
yeah,
they're
I mean, yeah,
chasing it.
and they'll
Yeah, I
continue
get it.
chasing it, and they'll continue failing because they just don't have any new ideas to bring to this. Like I said, what else do you do with this? Do you build
I mean,
another
I'm with you.
park? Do you reopen another park here, and then do the dinosaurs escape and eat people?
I mean, sure.
But
Let's do it.
no, I don't want
Kid,
to see that.
kids love dinosaurs. People love dinosaurs.
Do you put
I'm into it.
more locusts in it? Maybe it could be about
No,
another creature, like
don't do the locusts.
beavers, whatever.
I thought this was kind of strange. Sam Mendes, a director I like, is going to do 4 separate biopic films, and it's going to follow each member of the Beatles POV. And they're going to be 4 separate movies, but they're going to be happening at in the same universe, intertwined with each other. So we're going to get a Ringo movie, we're going to get a John Lennon movie, etc. Paul McCartney. This is a kind of a lot, right? I mean, why don't we just do a Beatles biopic? Like, I don't know. What do you think about that angle that they're going to take there?
I have two immediate thoughts. Number one, conceptually, so if listen, this is 1917 Sam Mendes, American Beauty Sam Mendes.
Mhm.
Like his resume is stacked on stacked on stacked. If anybody can pull this kind of a concept off, like it sounds really really cool. So what it sounds like is there's going to be like those moments where the different characters are going to come together and be together in the different scenes. Like what would be really really great, I mean, think about it conceptually, G. Like you could take these characters and you could have like a scene between all 4 Beatles, but then you go follow John and you kind of hear like John's thoughts about the interaction that they just had, and maybe he's mad at
Mhm.
Paul for whatever reason or blah blah blah. Like you could get like the internal kind of monologue of all the different characters, and like they're all things, and then they go off on their own, and they're like you see the different things that happen to them in their own lives and things like that. Conceptually it sounds absolutely fascinating, and I'm sure Mendes can pull it off, but it's also the Beatles. I don't like the Beatles, I don't care about the Beatles, so
Yeah.
I'm not interested in it like from the jump, just from that perspective. Like I
I
get
don't
it,
know.
like I get their place in music history. They're just not the band for me.
4 separate movies all releasing in the same year. I don't know what the width apart from them will be. It just says in 2027. So I don't know. It just seemed like kind of overkill, even for somebody that does like the Beatles. Like I like their catalog. I mean, they're not one of my favorite bands ever, but I do respect
I mean,
them
it
and I like their
depends on,
music.
I don't know. Like I guess it depends on exactly to what degree it's going to. I mean, obviously, if they're going to dedicate an entire movie to each individual member, then they feel like they've got enough story to tell. Because I mean, like I mean, realistically, like like you think about a biopic like Bohemian Rhapsody. Like, there's plenty of interesting stuff, I'm sure, about all the other people that are in Queen.
Right.
But we only got it's basically a Freddie movie.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's something that they could do is like kind of switch up the music biopic, which has kind of gotten stale.
The music biopic has definitely gotten extraordinarily stale. Like I said, I would trust, honest to God, trust in Mendes. Think about his catalog. I mean, he's gonna pull it off. Like, it's Sam Mendes. I would have faith in him to do literally anything. It's kind of, in the end of the day, we'll see how it plays out.
Hmm.
Yeah, it doesn't strike a chord with me though, because I'm not a Beatles fan. Like,
Yeah,
that
I
part
get
of
it.
it just misses for me.
The last thing I want to mention is the BAFTAs, basically the British Oscars was this past weekend, and a huge precursor leading up to the Academy Awards, which will be on March 10th, and kind of end award season, if you will. And Oppenheimer won 7 for the British awards. The other kind of races that are interesting, and I just kind of want to ask what you think, because it's kind of a two-headed race in the Best Actress and the Best Actor category, and these different precursors, they kind of keep seesawing back and forth. Cillian Murphy won here at the BAFTAs for lead actor. Obviously, Paul Giamatti won the Critics' Choice for that, and the SAG will be this weekend, which will be a huge kind of see who wins that. A lot of people think Bradley Cooper might win it, which would be a whole, like, well, who cares? Because he's not going to win the Oscar.
Yeah, right.
But, so Cillian Murphy got leading actor. Emma Stone got lead actress for Poor Things. Lily Gladstone is obviously her main competition. So I wanted to ask about those two races, your opinion, because it seems like it's going to be Murphy versus Giamatti for the Oscar, and then it's going to be the Stones. It's going to be Gladstone and Emma Stone for the actress Oscar. What do you prefer there? What do you think is going to happen there?
So what I think is going to happen is I think Nolan and Oppenheimer are both going to win the big ones at the Oscars. Nolan's going to take Best Director. I think Oppenheimer's going to win Best Picture, and Downey's going to win Best Supporting. So
Right.
I think that the Academy, because they love to spread the love around a lot of the time, and the Holdovers isn't going to get anything else. I think Giamatti wins the Oscar. Honestly, like from that, like it could swing to the sweep for Oppenheimer too. Like Oppenheimer might take all the big stuff. But I really like the Academy loves to spread the love around, like they really have in recent years, where they want everything to get a little something something. So I really feel like that's really the Holdovers best, and it's the only thing it's nominated for, isn't it? Or maybe a couple smaller like technical awards.
Joy Randolph will win supporting for the Holdovers.
Yeah, so
she's been sweeping all season, and I would be shocked if she didn't win the Oscar for supporting. But other than that, I mean, it doesn't have a whole lot. At least that it's in the running for.
I think for Best Actress, I think I will say it until the cows come home. I think Lily Gladstone is incredible, impeccable in an underwritten role, and she's the best part of Killers of the Flower Moon by far. I say she wins it, even though this probably is the performance of Stone's career.
Yeah, but yeah.
That's the tough one for me. Still is
that really
Best
is
Actress.
tough.
I only really like the Holdovers and the Oppenheimer thing. Like the only thing is, like, I've seen years before where, because a film is cleaning up and it's winning a whole bunch of other awards, they don't give, like, even though they're a front runner, it's like a surprise, and like somebody else wins that one, because they're just like, when they're filling out that ballot, they do mental math of like, oh well, we've given this many votes to Oppenheimer, so I guess we better tick one over here for whatever. I hope Giamatti wins it. I mean, obviously I love Alexander Payne. I love Giamatti.
Yeah,
it's not to take
anything away
from Murphy, but
he's such a beloved actor. So
yeah,
I don't know. I got to do my predictions video in a couple weeks before, obviously before the award show. And
Best Actress, I think is the toughest one for me to call. I think even up until the moment the statue is handed out, I'm going to be like flip flopping between the two. Ask me tomorrow. I might pick the other way.
And I think the Academy's members are going to be a lot like that too. Like, you know what I mean? Especially if they're watching these other shows and seeing these, speeches that these actors are giving.
Yeah.
Oscar voting starts as we're recording tomorrow on Wednesday. So, and it's like a 2-week period that they vote. So, the BAFTAs just happened. The Screen Actors Guild Awards will be happening while voting is open. So, people are going to be influenced by what they see on the stages at these other shows. And we've already gotten so many. I think it's like a flip a coin situation for those two races specifically, though. And all 4 of those people involved are so deserving.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really interesting race that you can't, or those two races that you can't say are predictable, because
you can't look at one or the other and say like this person deserves to win over this person.
Right.
It's like you're going to be disappointed either way, but you're also going to be happy either way. It's not necessarily going to be a case of why isn't this person winning this? Why isn't whatever? It's just it's going to be tough. Those two races are going to be the make it or break it in a lot of Oscar pools this year.
We'll see. And when we get together next week and do Spill the Peas, we'll see what the Screen Actors Guild did, which will be like the last major precursor to see if that, influences the voters.
I mean, besides the Golden Peas, I mean, do you think the Golden Peas is going to influence anybody from the Academy?
I highly doubt it. I highly doubt it. Although I will mention we had that last night, and Oppenheimer did sweep. Which
Oppenheimer did
I
sweep.
polled social media, basically people that follow me on social media, and hundreds of votes came back, and it was an Oppenheimer sweep. So I don't know. You kind of tap in a little bit to the psyche of the public there, a little bit, kind of a small sample size, but I think it is Oppenheimer's year. I mean, that's the movie of 2023. We've already kind of talked about that, maybe coupled with Barbie, but
Has
I
Killian
wouldn't
showed
be.
up at the garage there to pick up
He's
all
here.
the
Yeah,
all the
he's here.
awards?
He's over there. I don't know. He's like drinking a scotch or something. I don't know. He's very quiet. He doesn't really say a whole lot.
Oh, okay,
He
okay.
just kind of looks
He just
over
he
at
just
me,
wants
and
to he just wants to be peaceful over there, and yeah, okay.
he's on my wife's side of the garage, just kind
Okay.
of drinking and watching the stars. It's a thing. I don't know. He's a cool guy though. All right, that was our brand new segment called Spill the Peas. We'll play with it, guys. If you have any feedback, please let us know in the comments or send
Their
us a
feedback
message.
is going to be pick things that Nick cares about to talk about for news.
Well, why don't you come up with them? We'll alternate. I'll let you come up with them one week. And
If I
I'll do
here's the
next
thing,
week.
I don't ever see anything. I literally pay no attention to any entertainment news whatsoever. So
Sure.
like I know nothing about things unless I see them in the theater or unless you tell me about them. So
Well, that's cool to kind of see your reaction to if it's something you're hearing for the first time. Did you know about a lot of those stories I mentioned tonight, or no?
no, I'd never
Okay.
heard of any of
All right.
them. So
Okay, well, that's good. Kind of a.
I
kind of
knew
angle to it.
I knew that somebody was writing a new Jurassic movie that was due out, and it's due out in 2025 too, right? It's like next year.
Right. Yep.
So yeah, like I knew somebody was writing it, but like I'm still so burned on the franchise from Dominion. I
I get
really
that.
don't have faith in them creating something that's going to be. It doesn't even have to be original. It just has to be. It's like it's a Godzilla movie at this point. G, like just give us compelling human characters, some
That's
decent
true.
human drama, so that we care about the people when the dinosaurs are eating them. Don't give us ridiculously convoluted nonsense plots like locusts.
But fair, that's going to be a screenplay issue, I guess, kind of what you're saying. But in Gareth Edwards' defense, I feel like a lot of the movies that he's helmed have done that, like Rogue One, and I mean, even the creator.
Well,
with,
he
you know,
wrote the
young-
creator too, so that is his fault 100% from a script standpoint. So
I get it.
the creator was
I'll
we said it in our review. The creator was a beautiful movie. It did look
Exactly.
great. Like yeah,
Mhm.
the new Jurassic movie, like take it. It's Gareth Edwards, man. It's gonna look amazing. It's gonna look so good. Man, I hope his Godzilla stomps out of the forest of Isla Nublar and just eats up the T-Rex. Or
speaking
give it to
of
me.
speaking of looking good, we're going to talk about
Ooh.
best friends, guys. But Nick, reach in there, man. We start every review with what we call one big question.
You gotta ask yourself a question.
I have a lot of questions. Number one, how dare you?
This one's a good one, my
What do you
buddy. This one's a good one. And it goes right along with, I'm sure, what we're going to probably talk about when we talk about the movies, plural, here today on the show. Julio, our good buddy Julio,
Oh, wow.
because I stole his Flash question
Thank God.
and asked if this was the Flash of Tommy Wiseau movie. Sorry, Julio.
Mhm.
He
Nailed
had to ask us a serious question, and it was pretty much the only serious question we got. Now, I'm going to. I love all of our friends. I love all of our
Yeah,
friends, like on social media, on Facebook, on Discord, whatever. Ask us serious questions, guys.
Yeah.
We love serious
Something we
questions.
can talk about.
We don't
Right.
need to know if, like, about the golden peas being advertised more. Yaney.
Something we can discuss. Absolutely. I
Um,
agree with you.
Julio said, Gerald,
Mhm.
are you laughing with Tommy or laughing at Tommy? And does it matter?
That's a great question. Wow, you weren't kidding, huh?
Yeah, I really like that
Um,
question. So
I think, and for me, I'm kind of new to all this. I mean, we did The Room a few months ago as a retro review. That was the first time I'd seen it in its entirety and kind of got to witness the whole, pop culture phenomenon
you
that
gave
it was.
you gave it a pretend bad score to to still stay in with your film Twitter crowd. I get it.
Sure, yeah. Keep my rep. Killian Murphy's here. He's watching me, dude. I can't be,
I bet
think for
Cillian
m-
Murphy loves The Room.
I think for me, in answering this question and kind of hearing that and kind of thinking about it, I would say I probably started out kind of laughing at him. And as I've gotten to know him through these projects, like in Best Friends, for example, it was more laughing with him because I felt like this character of what's his name in the goddamn movie?
In this movie, it's Harvey.
Harvey. I feel like his character of Harvey in the Best Friends movies was much more of an improvised kind of thing where he was almost being himself, and it wasn't like a forced, scripted take that went horribly wrong, which is I feel like what happened in The Room. So I think it's been a progression for me. I would say the simple answer is both, but I think as time has gone on, I'm kind of in on the joke a little bit, and I kind of am laughing with him at this point. What about you?
I definitely with, for me, my love for The Room. I mean, but by objective standards, quote unquote, it can't be considered a good film in any sense of the term. I love it because of the passion that clearly went into making it, even if the talent wasn't necessarily there to back it up. It's like, hey, this dude cared enough like to try to make his dream project happen and did it. And like, no matter what the results are, and no matter what has become of him and his trajectory in Hollywood and everything like that since, like, he swung for it, he went for it,
True.
and I have a lot of respect for that. So like, yeah, like it's never gonna be lauded as the greatest motion picture of all time, but man, do I have an absolute blast watching it, because there was a sincere effort that went into it. I feel it's evident from watching it that there's a sincere effort that went into making it, in his vision, like whatever be damned. It's kind of like we reviewed Saltburn on the show, and I wasn't nearly as high on it as you, but I got all the respect in the world for Emerald Fennell, because again, that is 100% the film she wanted to make, and you could feel that passion and that energy that she had for it.
Well, to Julio's question too, I don't know if you read this or if you knew this prior to, because I know you saw a work print of this a few years ago, but I had obviously never seen. I mean, I'd kind of heard about this Best Friends existing, but I didn't really know anything about it aside from just the two of them were in it. But to Julio's question too, before we dive into the review, I had read before watching these movies in the last few days that Sestero wanted to make the movie because he felt bad for Tommy and kind of the ridicule that he received after The Room. Did you read that, or do you know that?
No, I hadn't read that. No.
I don't know if that's
makes sense.
Confirmed by him.
I mean, Harvey was very clearly like make no mistake, Harvey was very clearly written with Wiseau in mind. Like, Sestero wrote that character for Wiseau, like 100%. And then he kind of like, like some of it I'm sure was scripted dialogue, but there's a little bit of like, it's probably difficult to tell exactly how much of just Tommy slipped in there, in different parts of that performance. We'll get into it when we talk more about the movie.
Yeah,
but
I think it was probably a lot.
Yeah.
At least I kind of hope it was. But all right. So thank you guys for the one big question. And like Nick said, don't be afraid to actually ask us a question that you want us to discuss.
Or give us both. Like, if you give us both, I'm fine with that.
Oh, man. One of these days, you know what we should do? We should have a segment where we only answer, is this the Flash of blank? And that's
we should just take like the best of the Flash questions at some point, and those are the only ones we answer for the whole week.
All right. As we get into our discussion of Best Friends, Volume 1 and 2, we're going to kind of combine it and just do a discussion of these movies.
Now, we still got to rate them separately, right?
Oh, I gave one rating for them combined, but I can. Do you want to do? What do you want to do?
I want to rate them. I'm going to rate them separately.
Actually, I
don't know if your score is the same for both. Here, you could still give me your combined score, but then I want to hear what your because it has to be a separate score for each one.
All right, roll the sound drop. Early score reveal. Here we go.
Damn it! This always happens. I think I'm going to score, and then I never score. It's not fair.
All right, calm down there, Beavis. All right, so I'll count us in here.
He wants to score.
And then, so you're going to show both yours, or you want to do one at a time, or what do you want to do?
Up to you. How do you want to do it? You want to do Volume 1 first and then Volume 2, or do you want to do both at the same time?
It's going to be easy for me. So 3, 2, 1. Let's do Volume 1. All right. So Volume 1.
5.
All right. So a 4 for me on Volume 1, Best Friends. A 5 from Nick.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to keep this up for Volume 2. So let's do our Volume 2.
I'm going to raise up a 4.
And also a 4.
Volume 2. I was really surprised, actually, to hear how many people said that they thought Volume 2 was better.
No. It's more absurd. I mean, I guess when you say the word better, I guess it depends on what you're kind of craving with these movies, but we'll get into it. So, what the fuck? You really messed with my head on the math on that. Did you do that on purpose? Is that why you want to do it separate? What?
Let's see. So that's
So
17.
I have a 4.
That's 17 divided by 4, which is like 4.25 for the overall score from the piece.
So we'll say 4.5, I guess. We don't do 0.25s.
Sure.
All right. So we'll say it a 4.5 from the P's on cumulatively on Best Friends Volume 1 and 2. But let's get into it, man. So this is going to be spoilery. These movies came out in 2017, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
If you are listening to this review, you've probably seen them, or you're a fan of Wiseau or Sestero or whatever. So this was chosen by our patrons. Don't listen to this if you don't want to be spoiled. We're just going to kind of talk about both of these movies as we go through the next 20 minutes or so.
Yep.
So be warned, they will be spoiled. Nick, a huge fan of The Room, a huge fan of Tommy Wiseau. You've already even talked about it tonight. You are the super fan of the dudes involved in this project that we're covering. I'm going to let you go first because you got a 5 over there. You got a 4 over there. You're kind of right in the middle of the 10 scale there. What do you think of this whole Best Friends thing? And then I'll jump in.
Man alive. It's really, really tough for me. It's like you said, I really, really do love The Room. I've got a lot of love for Sestero and Wiseau. I think honestly what really fails, and this is specific to part 1, and there's also because these are separate movies, but they're also the same experience. And I think that there's something that has to be said for the combined experience too, and how one movie informs and influences your feelings about the other movie. I think that the first movie's story is in terms of, besides the fact that it has like some extra stuff that gets slapped in there and whatever, I think the first movie story is relatively straightforward. It like has a pretty straightforward plot. You know, like he starts working for him at the morgue and finds out he has a whole bunch of gold teeth. So he swipes them and sells them. And meanwhile, he meets some random girl, starts dating her, and then brings, Harvey's character into the gold teeth selling business. They decide to clear out like all of his inventory and make a whole bunch of cash. And, then he tries to bump him off and all this kind of different stuff happens. It's a pretty straightforward plot. Like it has its more silly elements and stuff like that. I think Wiseau I think he tries definitely in some scenes. I think he's better in some scenes than others. I think he's a little uneven sometimes. Yeah. In the first film, especially, I think he's much more even in the even keeled in the second film. We'll talk about part 2 in a little bit, but I think he's a little bit even. I think Sestero is perfectly fine for what he's given. I don't think any of their performances are truly terrible. They're nothing that you're going to write home about and be like, this is a masterful whatever.
I'll jump in real quick because I agree with what you're saying. I'm hearing a lot of the same thoughts I'm having in my head, but I think what's unremarkable about, we're just talking about Volume 1 right now, is that you have the opportunity to, because let's be frank here. Anybody that went to see this in 2017 or went to the Fathom event or bought this on Blu-ray or any of that shit, they are the audience for Wiseau, for Sestero. Yep. You know what I mean? Like, you're not getting film bros or film students to go out and buy Best Friends. They are buying it because they're a fan of The Room or the lore of The Room or whatever. So you had an opportunity with that demographic to really lean into what they were probably hoping to get with this movie.
Yep.
And which is ironic because I obviously was much lower on The Room than you are, and a lot of people are because I just, I'm new to it. But it's ironic because I feel like had this movie been played with that same, what the fuck is this slapsticky, like, train wreck vibe, I probably would have liked it more. If you could have mixed the tone of The Room with the story that we got here with these characters,
yep.
I mean, maybe like a 6 or 7 for me, probably. I mean, I feel like those elements would have been great together in the crock pot there. But
which is a thought to hold on to as well for when we get into the discussion of the later parts of Volume 2, because there's a point during which this whole affair goes just bananas. Like it literally just becomes completely bananas.
And I think they tried to.
It's a little bit of a tonal shift. I don't even think they necessarily tried to ape the tone of The Room or anything like that. I think that it just went off, like went bananas, like when the safe cracking guy, the old dude, shows up with the safe cracking and all
Yeah.
that different stuff, and like that whole sequence happens. Like that was just like bananas, dude. Like that
It
was so
was
off the wall. Like the rest of however, like the rest of the proceedings were really, really kind of slow to get up to that point. Like I said, volume 1 is fine story wise. I think where volume
I
1
agree.
fails is twofold, and this is going to be a problem that I have with volume 2 as well. Is Sestero's script number 1? This is 2 movies, G, and I know you're the champion of this is too long. This whole affair is way too long. There's a tight 2-hour 10, 2-hour 15 movie in here because there's a lot of fluff in both of these movies that can straight up hit the floor. Like it doesn't add
Absolutely.
any value to this
No question.
at all. And
Did they?
I think McGregor's direction, Justin McGregor's the director of this, some baffling choices. Like why were there like these baffling shots of in different frame rates in the same sequence? Like the scene at the cliffs, for example, like it continuously switches shots between different cameras that I don't know if they're just completely different cameras or if they intentionally shot it at different frame rates to try to like give you some kind of weird effect. It did not play at all. It was really, really bad actually. And like it actively dragged my score down every time it happened. Like I probably would have rated part 1 higher had it not had that nonsense going on with it, but it just got worse from there. I want to hear you dive into part 1 a little bit before we really crack part 2.
I mean, this is really an overall kind of topic for both movies because they have a very similar feel. But I did think aesthetically, I enjoyed it. Like I thought it did kind of remind me of like a student film shot on an iPhone at certain points, or like a drone, flying over the city where they had those establishing shots and that kind of shit. It did kind of remind me of that, but I don't dislike that though. I don't dislike that style. If that's kind of what you're going for and
if
that's
it
what
works.
the feel of the movies. Yeah, exactly. So I did like it from a technical standpoint. I thought a lot of the sub characters that we get introduced to in volume 1, because like you said, in volume 2, there's a lot of like cartoon characters that are just like, it's real. Like you said, it's really bizarre.
That safe cracking old guy might have just had like a giant like cowboy bucket hat with like revolvers and been like Yosemite Sam. Like that dude was a straight up cartoon character. That's a great way to describe him. That dude is a straight up cartoon character.
But I love in the first one when we got introduced to these new characters. That's not to, insult Tommy or Greg in any way, but they're kind of back and forth after the initial kind of like, he showed up with a bloody shirt and Tommy takes him in and like whatever. After that initial kind of like, okay, these two guys didn't know each other, it kind of became bland and kind of boring. Like I didn't really get anything from their dialogue together on screen. But when new characters would be introduced, especially if the two of them were there with the new characters, I thought they were great scenes. Like there's a scene where that dude Andre shows up with the 2 chicks or whatever to check out the gold teeth, and like Tommy, I think Tommy's improvising a lot of that. I don't think any of what Tommy said was scripted, because if you watch the actor that's playing Andre, he's even like, oh, what?
He just feels like he's reacting to Tommy Wiseau, not the character of Harvey. He feels like he's reacting to Tommy Wiseau in the moment. Like, what on earth are you talking about, dude?
What planet are you from?
Like, that's either a masterful performance from Vince Jolivet is the name of the actor. That's either a masterful performance on his part, or it's a take where Wiseau just went off page and the actor was just like, what on earth is happening here? And then like also kind of didn't seem like he was gonna suffer. He was just kind of like, no, knock it off.
And
dude.
there's one part in that scene too where Andre is saying something to Greg and Tommy starts saying something like that doesn't make any sense, and Andre's like, what? Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt you, what were you saying? To Tommy. Like as if it weren't going to be in the movie and they were in a scene together. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it ends up making the movie. But when these new characters kind of got introduced, and I love Tracy, especially in volume 1, like I really liked her character, and I believed what was happening with her character in volume 1. So I also It's funny, actually. I probably should have ranked 2 a little bit less, but I kind of hated what they did with her character in Volume 2.
I agree,
But,
because isn't it kind of two completely different characters?
yeah,
It does
it
not
is.
even play that, like the performance doesn't play the same way. I don't know what kind of time frame gap there was between shooting these, or whatever the case may be, but these were entirely different characters. It
I
almost
agree.
seemed like, which was a shame, because yeah, I didn't dislike her character at all. But I think the reason why I dislike part 2 more, both scripts for both parts of Best Friends are too long and include way too much fluff. That is especially true in part 2. Part 2 drags endlessly, absolutely endlessly, because it's clear the movie doesn't really have anything to do until it gets to that final act, and like they're at the uncle's house trying to crack the safe, and Yosemite Sam and like the weird dude on the motorcycle with the acid jugs around his neck shows up to try to
My
burn through the
God, dude.
safe and everything.
Do you
And
so we'll shift over to Volume 2 for the next little bit, but before we do, I just want to ask your opinion. Honestly, I have no idea what the answer to this is. I'm sure it's out there somewhere, or maybe even Loisos could tell us. But do you think they wrote Volume 2 reactionary to Volume 1, or do you think they had this whole story kind of like, we're gonna make this whole thing?
so I know, Loisos, who, my former co-host on Epic Film Guys, co-host of the 2Ps, gets a special thanks in Volume 2 of Best Friends. Like, so
Right.
this is what I remember, and you'd have to clarify anything with Loisos. He'd be able to tell you 100%. I can't tell you 100%, but I know Loisos went to the premiere of Best Friends, and had a lot of correspondence back and forth with Sestero, and where Sestero sent him the script for Volume 2. This was after the work print of, like, because we on Epic Film Guys, we watched like the work print of part 1.
Yeah.
And it was before part 2 had been like done, or before it was written. So these were not written at the same time. Like
Okay.
maybe Sestero had the nugget of the idea, or maybe there was a draft of the script when part 1 was shot. But I don't think this wasn't a scenario where these were shot concurrently and like written the whole time. Because like I said, I don't know for sure. I can't tell you for sure. Loisos could, but I think he did some like uncredited like script doctoring or something like that for Volume 2.
The main problem I have with it in its entirety is that it's such a distinct difference from the 2 movies. I feel like, with
Yeah.
the same characters, in the mix, and the same like kind of like underlying journey, if you will, but they're tonally so different. We already talked about Tracy's character, but I mean, other characters in these 2 movies are played so different, even though they're the same people.
Yeah,
So,
which is where it fails. I mean, you think about like a Kill Bill Volume 1 and Volume 2.
yeah,
Like Kill Bill, both of those films are completely tonally different, but Tarantino's Tarantino and can obviously pull it off. Justin
Right.
McGregor, I don't think can pull off that tonal shift quite as well. And yeah, these characters, like, especially, yeah, you hit the nail on the head with Tracy. That's a completely different character in Volume 2 than it is in Volume 1. I don't know what happened there.
even if you look at, I don't know why I keep Harvey. I was going to say, I don't know why I keep forgetting his character's name. But even if you look at like Harvey, which I know was kind of this mysterious fucking Monty Python knight or whatever for the majority of this movie. But even his like dialogue, once he's demasked or whatever, he's even different. Because in Volume 1, he's much more, actually kind of similar to how he was in The Room, where he's much more this kind of sympathetic parental, like mentor. I mean, the absurdity of his performance aside, I mean, that's kind of the role that he takes on with John Sestero's character in Volume 1. And in Volume 2, it's like he's this hero who's like riding in the sunset to save people. And then at the end, we kind of get a loop back around with the real estate and the house that, that he buys him or whatever.
Yeah.
That kind of spoke to Volume 1 Harvey, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like it's 2 completely different films, but they're supposed to happen on the same day or a couple days. You know what I mean? Like, they just seem like either they're years apart from each other, or there's different people in the roles. I don't know. They didn't line up for me, these 2 movies.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a strange tonal shift, and I don't think McGregor is a deft enough directorial hand to pull it off. Unfortunately, like I said, I think the main problem with both of these films, because I didn't even really have a problem with the direction for the most part. I think they're both, copyright Dan Branagh, fine.
Yeah.
I don't think that they're necessarily terrible films or anything like that. I've seen much worse this year already. Argyle cough. Sorry. But I just think that I think that the script was mystifyingly long. Why the decision was made to make 2 movies out of this instead of cutting this down into one, like I said, like 1 2-hour film. If you cut both of these films together into 1 2-hour film, there's a really good film in there.
Definitely a tighter film.
The other problem that I really have, though, with Volume 2, the reason why it gets a lower score from me is all the weird intercut philosophical nonsense from Harvey, where it's
the flashback or whatever, or the flash forward,
whatever it is, whenever that's supposed to take place after he gets rescued at the end of the movie or whatever. Like that whole, all that stuff being intercut in there. Like, if you wanted to teach us more about this character and more about his past and more of that developmentally should have been earlier in the proceedings. But here's the thing, G, if you look at the plot of Volume 2, minus those flash forwards and minus all those philosophical musings from Harvey's character, they go to her uncle's house and try to open a safe. That's literally the whole plot of Volume 2. Almost nothing happens throughout the whole movie. There's way too many scenes of ridiculous nonsense with this Clint Eastwood lookalike uncle.
Yeah.
And like doing pull-ups on like a
what'd
pull-up
you think
bar
of his character
that you can get at Walmart. Like, I have the same pull-up bar downstairs in my basement. Like, it's literally the same exact one. It's like a cheap pull-up bar you can get at Walmart for like $30. I mean, it's like,
on the page, I don't know what I'm having trouble, and I know it's hard to break down, like, so bad it's good and that whole thing. But I'm having trouble visualizing what Sestero and what the screenplay wanted from that character specifically, from some of the other side characters in Volume 2, because we already talked about how it's so different tonally from Volume 1, even though it's essentially the same story arc. Like, what did you think of Uncle Rick? I mean, it was just so weird, man. Like, yes, there was some comedy there. Like, it was funny, but it was so crazy and over the top that it was funny. But do you think that was the intent with this character, or is he supposed to be menacing? Are we supposed to be fearful for John? Like, what are we? Because there's a period of time in the screenplay in Volume 2 when Rick has basically just like a string of insults he's firing at John, calling him a pussy and like all this stuff while he's sitting on the couch watching TV, and John doesn't say literally anything back to him to stand up for himself the whole time. Yeah. I don't know. Is it supposed to be funny, or what do you think, man? Or how did you take it?
I don't know. I think you're right. There is a menace to the character, but then like he's also over the top kind of funny. I get like some Uncle Rico vibes out of him when he's out throwing the football at the side of his barn in the middle of the night.
Sure,
which is like such a weird
dream sequence, right?
And everything, it's just, I don't necessarily know. And the fact that character was so prominent in Volume 2, we got so much of him.
Yeah, I was like,
was a little bit much. Like, I just was like, it was so weird, and they had already had Tracy's character was just like this complete antithesis of her Part 1 character, to where I just didn't like her anymore. And Sestero wrote his own character to not really say a lot, which I think his performance is good. Like, his nonverbal performance is good in a lot of those scenes. I just like, he doesn't say a lot. So basically the only characters with dialogue for like 2/3 of this movie are Tracy and Rick. And like, neither one of them are really enjoyable characters to even watch on the screen. So and then you have the whole swerve. Like, I'm sorry, but the swerve is pointless. I hate the swerve. It's so stupid that all of a sudden it turns out that like what was this her plan when she met him? Like, it makes no sense that all of a sudden
it doesn't play into the Volume 1.
It doesn't play into Volume 1 at all. Like, all of a sudden, she was like really this crook the whole time that was going to rip him off. Like, he was nobody. He had nothing when he met her. Like, what? And then all of a sudden she's banging this old dude who like
Right.
comes in, like they convolute this whole nonsense where, because they never, here's the thing. At the end of volume 1, right? Let's compare how this works out here. At the end of volume
A
1,
literal cliffhanger, by the way.
a
It's also
literal
right there.
cliffhanger. They park at the end. They park here at this thing because they get Tommy tickets to go to Candlestick Park and watch a Rolling Stones concert. Why your immediate default to Sestero, or to, I'm sorry, Harvey's accusation that it's a fake ticket, be like, oh man, they must have sold me some bad tickets or something like that. I got them online. Let me look them up or whatever. But immediately Sestero's character just caves like to whatever because he knows that Candlestick Park got demolished or whatever. You know, like that's not even that notwithstanding. But they brought Wiseau's car. But in volume 2, they never show you what happens to it. So you just assume that that Sestero goes back to it. Like goes back to that car and takes the car after he like shoves him off of the cliff or whatever.
Right. He finds it in the garage later in volume 2.
And then he finds it in the garage later. So they kind of deliberately withhold that information. And I mean, we talked about this with Argyle recently. I've talked about it any number of different times. If you have to stop your movie wholesale to explain some twists that happened, or this film does the opposite, G, it deliberately omits information, like, because any viewer is just going to assume that after he shoves him off the cliff, he's going to walk back up the hill, grab the car, and take off. But nope, that's not what happens. But they wait until later in the movie to make this ridiculous reveal to us and then cut back to that moment and be like, ha ha ha. Like, no, like you do not get to stop your narrative wholesale to explain your twist to us. Like, stop doing it.
I think, I mean, we'll wrap up here. I think that for me, and I'm talking about both movies kind of combined, just generally for the whole project, the reason why I have a little bit more respect for a movie like The Room is because The Room knew, or Tommy knew, what he wanted The Room to be. You know what I mean? Like, he played it straight. Well, it depends on what your point of view is, but I think he played it straight, and it ended up kind of, people thought it was hilarious and just couldn't believe that it got made and it became this cult thing or whatever. But when he made it, he was passionate about it. He was serious about it. You know, he thought it was going to be a serious Hollywood project.
Yeah.
When you fast forward to like the Best Friends movies, I don't think Sestero and the writers, I don't think they knew what they wanted here, because it seesaws too much between that Room-esque kind of absurdity and seriousness of the plot, you know, and then you get characters like fucking Rico Jr. in Volume 2. I don't know his name, but
it's all I can think of was Uncle Rico watching that character. Like, that's the level of absurd that character is.
You get him, you get, you know, these little bits of dialogue that were put in there, like in Volume 1 even, when, you know, because he works at the mortuary, so when he's doing these autopsies or whatever, like there's one scene where like the Chinese woman died, so they went to have Chinese food. There's one scene where the clown died, so they had cake. You know, it's like little shit that obviously was put in there on purpose. That's just absurd. It's just like silly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then the next scene will be kind of super dramatic, and him and Tracy having this argument in the apartment, and like, so the problem for me, even though I'm rating it higher technically than I did The Room, is I don't quite respect Best Friends as much as I respect The Room. And I hate to compare them because they're so different, but obviously the same filmmakers and people involved in the same kind of universe, if you will. And I didn't hate these movies, you know, like I sat through them. I found myself enjoying different parts of them. Volume 2 was enjoyable to me just because of how fucking crazy it was. I mean, what was the thing with Tommy with the fucking night helmet on? Was that just like
I said, I really wish I wish they would have embraced that tone throughout both volumes, like all of it. Like I wish it would have just been that over the top, kind of ridiculous, cheesy, whatever. Like they had their tongues planted firmly in their cheeks, because like when you see him with that night helmet, you can't help but laugh. Like it just looks so ridiculous, and he's walking around with like it's like a little German pistol or something like that.
And he's like hitting people from like 100 yards away in the damn mountains or whatever. I mean, it just, the breaks in logic were huge.
Yeah.
and it didn't wear itself on its sleeve like The Room did. It was just a tonal shift back and forth, up and down. I hated what they did with Tracy's character. I'm with you. I wish the tone had been more consistent throughout both volumes, and it just wasn't. It was too all over the place for me. So I gave both of them a 4, but I think if you're looking at them as single projects, I think Volume 1 is probably a better movie. And honestly, I like the end of Volume 1 with that quick cut of what we assumed was a dead body, with the close up of Tommy's face and kind of that like dark music, and it cuts to credits. Like, I like that. Like, that could have been this movie, and that would have been fine. I mean, Volume 2 gave us a lot of fodder for, Clint Eastwood Jr. and all that shit, and then all that stuff's funny. But like, for example, the end of Volume 2 didn't hit me at all. Like, I thought that was stupid. Like, okay, so this dude rides in on his bicycle. He's Two-Face now, and he's going to go in there and kill everybody? Like, I mean, who cares? You know what I mean?
I
But
desperately want Volume 3.
I guess we'll get
I don't
it.
care how I feel about this. I need Volume 3, please.
Yeah. All right, what else you got on Best Friends, man?
Like I said, I really think there's a tight 2-hour-ish movie in here that could be edited down to make something really, really wonderfully digestible out of this. I think as it stands now, it was just too long. And I think the fault really is Sestero's script. I don't know that Sestero is accomplished enough as a screenwriter to really have tightened this up to where it needed to be. And Justin McGregor's direction, unfortunately, I feel like it's just uneven. And yeah, there's that tonal shift. It, like you said, for a film like a Kill Bill Volume 2, it works in a Kill Bill sense because Tarantino's Tarantino, and he can pull off complete genre shifts between different movies or even in the same movie. Mm-hmm. And Justin McGregor, unfortunately, is not adept enough to pull that off here. And that's the problem, is because it's so boring at parts and because it drags so endlessly, it doesn't have charm. It like any charm that it might have, any enjoyment or anything that you do derive from it that you find enjoyable, wanes really, really quickly because of those extended sequences of just these different characters just doing different things. Like, there's one scene where John Sestero's character comes back to the morgue and Harvey yells at him for being late a whole bunch of times, and then to clean a bunch of stuff up, and he like opens a cabinet and takes out some vials or some jars or something, and then like twists the lid on them a couple times and like puts them back. Like, it's very clearly just this weirdly staged scene where he's supposed to be doing something, but they didn't dress the set like well enough. Yeah. And like, this wasn't made by Tommy Wiseau. This isn't a Tommy Wiseau film, so you can't fault Wiseau for that. I don't necessarily. I think maybe like between Sestero writing it and everything like that, and Wiseau starring in it, like maybe they thought they were going to just be able to swing and get a hit out of this. But I think that it's just it's not. It's too long, and it drags too much to really hold your interest, to really become like I saw like different people like being like, it's gonna be a future cult classic. Just you wait and see. Like, nobody's rocking to the cinema to watch a 3.5-hour Best Friends marathon and doing a quote along, because it drags so badly in parts. It just becomes complete, especially like I said, Volume 2, aside from just like laughing at how silly and over the top the uncle is, nothing at all happens in Volume 2 for literally the first 2/3 of the movie. And then Yosemite Sam shows up and tries to shoot Bugs Bunny or crack into the safe or whatever he was trying to do.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's literally
all right.
If you think we're kidding, watch the end of Best Friends Volume 2. It's free on Amazon Prime with Freevee. And it seriously, like, that dude is like so funny. Like, I could not help but laugh every time that dude was on the screen, every time he was talking. Like, even the way he was holding the gun on them when he was holding them at gunpoint, like, everything about it was funny.
They did Tracy wrong though, man. That kind of pisses me off still.
Yeah.
She was.
I don't know. Like I said,
America's sweetheart.
Cut this down into 1 2-hour film, and I bet you this would be like a 7 for me.
And Paul Scheer showing up in both movies was interesting. Obviously, also in The Disaster Artist, He's a character actor. Has been in a ton of shit. I know him from The League too, that TV show about the fantasy football friends or whatever. But yeah, him showing up there, I did not expect that. I was like, oh, I know him. Okay, so a 4 from me on both volumes, which is a 4, and then a 4 from Nick on volume 2, right, and a 5 in volume 1.
Yep.
So 4.5 from Nick collectively. So there you go. Our discussion of Greg Sestero's best friends. By the way, why is the R in parentheses? Does anybody know? Has anybody asked him?
All right, listen. Maybe it's parenthesis R for Rico, like Uncle Rico. Maybe. I don't know.
That's probably it.
That's
actually.
that.
Probably
I'm going to say that's it.
That's probably it. Yeah, you nailed it. What do we do? What are we doing next week, Nicholas? My work schedule is horrible, but I think we're going to try to do Drive-Away Dolls, right?
Well, you keep telling me so listen, audience. Gerald keeps waxing and waning on whether or not he wants to do Drive-Away Dolls. He'll be like, "Well, I guess it's a new release. I guess we could do it."
I want to do it. I just don't know if I can see it before Sunday. That's all.
It's been this late. It's been literally for months now. He's been back and forth on this whole nonsense. So, Drive-Away Dolls or some random thing that you don't know what it's going to be, and you'll find out. There you go. Next week, whatever it is.
Those are your two options.
Dune,
it's going to be Drive-Away Dolls or something
Dune
else.
is on the horizon. Dune Part 2 is on the horizon, ladies and gentlemen. So
it is. A couple weeks in a row, we'll be reviewing that one, and can't wait to see that one. Hopefully in IMAX myself. You saw Part 1? You caught it?
I did. Yeah, we're going to do a Patreon review of it.
Damn sure. I didn't know if that was this week or if you already saw it.
No. I already saw it. I saw it last week when I saw. What did we review last week?
I don't know. I don't even know where I am right now. I
Lisa
think we
Frankenstein?
Did, yeah, we did Lisa Frankenstein.
I already forgot because that's how forgettable that movie is.
Nah, movie's great. I love that movie. Can't stop thinking of certain scenes in that film.
Yeah, I watched Dune Part 1 the same day. So yeah, I'm eager to see the story complete, I guess, is all I'll really say about that. But yeah, review coming soon to Patreon. We're gonna get our buddy Caleb, formerly of Netflix and Swill, and what's his new show called?
I don't know. He has a new show?
Jock Jams. I don't think it's Jock Jams, but
Wait,
he's got a new show. He's only got like a couple episodes in. It's him doing a music podcast. But he's going to be joining us. He's a Dune lore master. So if you liked the Patreon episode a while back of him Tolkien-splaining the Tolkien universe to Gerald, he's going to be on to Herbert-splain the Dune universe to me and Gerald.
He did do that
for the first half of Dune. Yeah, so
he did that. He kind of did it with 50 Shades when we covered those too. He loves just kind of breaking it down.
He loves getting into the lore of all this stuff, which is exciting. Which is exciting. But he's not allowed to spoil Part 2 for us because neither Gerald or myself has any idea what is to come. So stay tuned, folks. Gerald, the summer movie season is coming. We've got a whole bunch of exciting stuff coming this summer. Can't wait.
Hell yeah, still got the Oscars on the horizon as well. So yeah, we'll get the content out there to you guys. But the Dune Part 1 discussion will be on Patreon. All the links are below for that. And then next week we will talk about probably Drive-Away Dolls. If not, it'll be another something that's streaming or who knows. I don't know.
Another time if we could find Big Shark anywhere, man. I can't wait to see Big Shark someday. But Tommy Wiseau's still touring around the country with it. And he won't release it like physical media or streaming until he's done doing like these weird tour engagements where you can go watch it in the theater with.
That's got to be intense.
I'm so excited to see that. I really, really am.
We'll have to cover it if we ever get a chance to. All right, guys, tune in next week to see what we're covering. We'll find out then. Nick, thanks for staying up late for me, brother, and I will see you soon, man. Take care, guys. Glasses, keep them on. Don't you take those fucking glasses off. I haven't stopped recording yet.